Good afternoon. We're going to go over the watch list for the week of December 14th. Before I get into the watch list, we have OPEC on Wednesday, and we have FOMC Wednesday. So SPY will probably end up popping the first couple of days, Monday and Tuesday, and end up probably getting wrecked on Wednesday afternoon, because that's what usually happens. But we'll have to see what happens when the time comes. So yeah, just looking at the schedule for the week, that's Wednesdays. They're going to be the big day with OPEC and FOMC. So definitely be wary of that day. We also had some more vaccine news being shipped and stuff like that. So they're probably going to pump the market with more vaccine hype and stuff like that. So with that said, if you're not in the room, the link is in the description of the video and in the bio section of my Twitter and StockTwits account, so you can join that way. Start with the bullish side first, and then we'll go with the bearish side. So I get McDonald's on the list first. McDonald's, it just looks like it's kind of like bottoming out right here. It's consolidating right in this little area, 205, 210 area. So I'd be interested in an over 209 for gap filled, obviously to 210 plus to the 215. If it can with 215, it's probably got a good chance to run to 220. So definitely be watching McDonald's for a reversal. CRM is another one. I mean, it's just gotten clobbered the last few days or last week. So it's getting pretty oversold, and I'd be looking for a possible reversal over 230, but I mean, you can get it earlier if you want, like 225. Then 230 is going to be area is going to be for gap resistance. So if it can get through gap resistance, it'll probably fill a gap to 240, and then if it does get any more strength behind that, I could probably see 250 on it. So SRM, Salesforce, I'd be watching for a reversal. QCOM got hammered last week. I said it was gonna end up falling apart, and it did. So it is right at gap support right now. Can it go lower? Yeah, it could go lower. It could fill the gap. So be cautious of that. So if it does manage to get below 141, it's probably going to fill the gap to the 130. So be aware that that is there and could potentially happen. But if it does manage to get over, let's say over 146, it's probably going to go to 150 and test the gap resistant from Friday, and then if it manages to get any more strength behind it, probably going to fill the gap to 156. So QCOM had a big the RSI is well below 30. I mean, it was down to 20 and on the hourly. So it could just pop to gap resistance and come back down just to let the RSI cool off a little bit. So I'll have to be leery of that. I mean, it could go either way here, but I think the RSI is going to need to cool off and kind of do a dead cat bounce on it. So we'll have to see what happens. Walmart is another one to keep an eye on. It hasn't pulled back that much, but Walmart it's already oversold on the daily according to the SMI. So. And usually when you have a stock that breaks out like at a little cup and handle right here on the daily, and it comes back down, it likes to retest the level it broke out at, and it's doing that right now, and it's considered oversold on the daily. So I would definitely start watching it over I'd say over one, you could say 147.50 or just say 148. And if it does get to 148, probably going to push to 150, and if it does get to 150, it's probably going to push through a new all-time high, which is 153.66. So it could probably push to 154. So Walmart could have a strong move, so I'd definitely keep an eye on that. Lululemon, they had good earnings, but they ended up just selling off. So they could continue to sell off. I mean, I would love to see Lululemon at 320 again, but I'm not quite sure we'll get there. So we'll have to see what happens. There is more potential downside to it, but if it gets over 350, it's probably going to push to 360 and push to 370. So I would definitely watch that area, but also it has room to drop more. I mean, it can drop more to 340 Even the 330 area right in here is a lot of choppiness right in here, support and resistance right in this area. So then you get 320. So I mean, if it gets to 320, I'll be really looking for that for a long term spread going heavy. So HD is one I've been watching all week and still watching, and I still think it's gonna make a big move. And I mean, obviously look at the weekly. I mean, it held the RCT trend line on the weekly, which is pointing up. Usually it likes to bounce off it, and like, you know, right here and here bounced off. I mean, it did drop right there, but it does like to bounce off this area quite a bit. So and it's, you know, kind of bottoming out on the daily. I'm already in at Home Depot, so if it does manage to get over this 365, you know, let's say 266 area, it's probably going to push to 270 and even get to the 274 area. I mean, but 270 is going to be a big area for it on the hourly and the daily. So if it does manage to break that, it's definitely got room to 275, even to the 278 area. So Home Depot is one that could really turn around. Hoping it will be this week, as I'm already in it. Like I said, Clorox is another one. There's more news coming out that Clorox is can't handle the demand. They're running out of Clorox wipes. They're running out of bleach. They're running out of all kinds of things. So we're in the middle of a pandemic. I know vaccines are out, but who knows how what's going to happen with those and how much is going to get distributed, and if it's just the demand's going to be too much for the vaccines, and then the demands for the Clorox. So I would imagine that it's going to turn around and start picking up. So I would watch it over 205 for a push to 210 area, then 215. If it gets over 215, 220 would be next. Then if it's some reason it can get over 220, it's probably going to get to 225. So Clorox definitely could be one to watch. Another one is Netflix. Netflix is just at bottom out on the daily. Right in here, we were watching this, and it still looks good. I mean, it's right in this little zone on the weekly right here, and I think that if it can get over the 510 area, it's going to push to 520 and go back up to 540. It just likes to stay in this 480 to 540 range, so it just keeps bouncing in and out of that range. So we'll have to see what happens with that. It kind of looks like CI's chart, which I'll get to when I get to the other side. So that's it for the bullish side. Now the bearish side. Now if the market does get weak, I got ZM on one of them. It's got a head and shoulders right here, which I posted a chart the other day. I mean, it could pop. I mean, if there's more lockdowns, I mean, Zoom will probably benefit from those. But if the market's weak and Zoom is not looking too good, I mean, it probably can fill the gap right down here to the 330 area. So I would definitely keep an eye on Zoom under 385 for a push to 365, even then down to the 350. Now if it breaks the 350, which is gap support, it's gonna drop quite a bit down to the 325 area, 330, 325 area. So Roku is another one. Roku just keeps going and going and going, and it's just ridiculous. I think it's getting so bad on the RSI, on the daily and the weekly, and every time it gets really, really far from the RCT trend line, that it likes to do a hard reversal. So I've been calling it back here, and I think I called it back up here last week. But you know, it's gonna make that big drop, and it's gonna catch people off guard. I mean, there's so much FOMO on Roku. It's just kind of ridiculous at this point. So I mean, obviously it's double topping right here. You can say it's an ascending wedge. Can it go higher? Yeah, sure, it can go higher, but the daily RSI needs to cool down. The daily RSI is close to 80, so it was 80 over here, and it dropped down. So I'm expecting something to drop on Roku. So you know, I'd watch it under 320. Yeah, I could say under 320, and it gets under 320, it's probably going to drop to 309, 300. 300 would be a big psychological number, and if it breaks that, I mean, it's probably going to run to 290. So we'll have to see if Roku actually pulls back this week, or it's just going to continue FOMOing and just going to 350, or who knows what will happen with that. So Roku will be definitely one. When it starts getting weak, it's just going to get hammered. BA, I know there's a lot. BA is like getting ready to launch, get back with inflate and approvals for the 737, 747 Max. I don't remember what it is. It's one of those numbers. The Max is getting more traction. So I mean, yeah, I know that's out there, but it could be a sell the news event, and could be already priced in. But to me, it kind of looks like it's like reversing a little bit on the daily. I mean, it's starting to curl down, and the 20 EMA is right here. So I mean, if it does manage to get below this 229, probably push to 220, even to 210 especially if the market's weak. But BA doesn't always follow the market. BA's got a mind of its own, but you can see on the hourly, it's got like a descending triangle happening right here. So lower highs is pushing down. So we'll have to see if that actually happens. I mean, it did have an ascending wedge right here, ascending triangle right there, and it did break out. So I think it's going to fill a gap, and we could see 220, 210, even 200. So we'll have to see if Boeing actually does that and pulls back. So yeah, then we have Win. Win is another one that's just been doing really well, but lockdowns are starting to happen more, and I don't know if they'll continue having more lockdowns throughout the week, even though vaccines are being distributed. But only so many vaccines can be distributed, and there's so many people out there, and if people just start acting recklessly because vaccines are out, they're gonna start locking down until things are more balanced out as far as that. So I would watch Win under 108, and then for a push to probably the 103 area, because you get a lot of, this is where the former breakout area is right here, the 103, and 100 be a big psychological number, and if it does manage to break 100, it's probably going to drop into 95 and probably even test this 87 area of gap support. But I mean, that's a pretty big drop for Win. So we'll have to see if it actually does drop this week, and if any bad news comes out. So EXPE, which is Expedia, on the weekly, it struggles in this 134 area. So it just 130 area, I should say. So be definitely watching that. It did have a decent down day on Friday. It does manage to get lower than 121. I even say 122. If it does get below 122, it's probably going to end up dropping down to the 120, even come down to the 115 gap support. And if it does end up losing gap support, it's going to end up filling the gap down to 104. So Expedia could definitely be one that could be a nice move. It ends up getting some weakness behind it. Now I posted a chart on insurance, SI, Cigna, and it just, every time it gets into this 225 area, it drops 1, 2, 3. I mean, close to it. There were 4, and this is number 5. Now I also have to remember that there's an inverted cup and an inverted head and shoulders on the weekly. I mean, that's a really big clear picture that it could have a monster day and break out over 230. That's quite possible. The look is there, the pattern's there, so we'll have to see if it actually does play out. But it keeps rejecting this area, and it had 3 down days in a row, and I would definitely watch it under like the 207 for a push to 200. Actually, 203, then 200, and gap support is right here at 195. And if it does manage to break 195, it's probably going to end up filling the gap. So these gaps end up usually getting filled over time, not immediately, but usually when they pop up quite a bit, they at least come down and retest it at least once, and it has not been tested yet. So maybe this is the time it does, or maybe this is the time that the inverted head and shoulders on the weekly actually takes off and actually breaks out. So if it does manage to get over the 226 area on SI, then I would definitely grab calls for a possibly a monster breakout if it does happen. But I wonder what the other insurance companies look like Humana. I mean, they don't have that. CI, what is the other one? UNH, United Health. I mean, yeah, they don't look like CI. I mean, so Cigna is definitely charged different than the other insurances, but they're all gonna mostly run together. Yeah, so you see, even this one is UNH is pulling back, so on the weekly it's pretty extended a little bit. So yeah, I mean, CI could definitely have a nice pullback, and it's so clean too. The chart is so clean. You get this weekly resistance at the, we'll say, 225 area, then you get this like support right here at the 204 area. I mean, it's so clean. You get big support down here at the 163 area. I mean, this is just a clean looking weekly if I've ever seen one. So that's gonna do it for the weekly watch list. So plan accordingly, set limit, set not limits, alerts. So when you have a lot of tickers, I usually like set alerts, like I'll set an alert for like 207. If it gets below that, I'll get notified. That way I don't have to watch 50 tickers at once. I make a bunch of alerts, and when they get triggered is when I go back to the chart and look at it again. So hopefully this has helped, and remember to be cautious this week with OPEC and FOMC. It could be a start of a strong week, then choppy, and then who knows what could happen. So just plan accordingly. Thanks for watching.